has an amazing story. She, I don't even know how to even begin, but I'm just saying this woman is very intelligent. And so I want to introduce you. Choice, how are you doing today?
I am doing well. How about yourself?
I am doing well. So
Wonderful.
tell the audience where you're from.
I am from Maryland. I currently reside in the capital of Maryland, Annapolis.
Okay, okay. We got a lot in common. We'll talk more. I got family out there. I got, as a matter of
Okay.
fact, my oldest daughter is in Maryland, Silver
Okay.
Springs. And
I grew up there.
okay, okay. See, I was out there like 1990 to 1992. I was in Washington, D.C., Potomac and everything. Um,
Yes.
we was talking before, right? So tell the audience a little bit about yourself. How did you get to where you are?
So my journey began when I um, suddenly lost my mom, who was 43 years old, from a massive heart attack. She passed on my 21st birthday, leaving me and two siblings. I have an older brother and a younger brother. But that is where my journey began. My journey to healing and finding myself led me to return to school to educate myself, earning a master's in counseling, human service counseling, with a concentration of grief counseling, as well as a master's in education with the concentration of educational therapy. I'm a certified grief support specialist, and it took for me to lose my mom, and it's sad to say that, but by losing my mom, it built and allowed me to birth a purpose.
Mhm. Now, see, that's pretty awesome. I love that you're taking it and doing something with it. You know, let's talk about the work that you do. I think that's really important as well. We talked about it. You work with kids, right?
I do. I work with children with learning differences,
Mhm.
such as dyslexia, auditorial differences
Mhm.
um, as well as working with their families to advocate for them and their children, as well as navigating through special education. But within that, I also provide grief support. I became a grief support facilitator with Grief Share 8 years ago.
Mhm.
Um, Prior to me becoming a facilitator, I was a participant myself. I went through Grief Share to help me understand what grief was and what it was I was dealing with and how to navigate through the grief to re-find a hope in life after losing my mom.
Right.
And now I'm happy to be able to serve others, helping them to do the same. And that's find hope in the grief. Even with working with children, people don't realize that grief is not just the loss of a loved one,
Right.
but the loss of identity. It's a loss. As I work with the children, these children have lost confidence in themselves and the educators that that work with them. They've lost self-esteem, not believing in themselves because of the differences and how they learn and not being able to fit in a box that um, we're sometimes put in and how we're taught and how we learn. And so working with them as well to be able to not only figure out how to use their strengths in learning to be able to build their weaknesses, but how to also understand the emotions that they're feeling, understand that that they're not alone and that being different is okay. And their parents who are trying to understand that as well as they're trying to support them and find the support and accommodations that they need. So both the knowledge that I have as a grief support coincides with the knowledge that I have as an educational therapist as well.
See, that's amazing. That's truly amazing. We were talking earlier before the recording. We talked about the relationships and how it affects the grieving process. And
Yes,
I know we were talking about the relationship between siblings and how we differentiate I can't even speak. The
it's
how we
okay. Take
just
your
I
time.
know my tongue is like blah, 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 blah. My guys are gonna have fun with that one because it's like my tongue got stuck. But how to distinguish what those
Yes,
relationships are and how to help others understand what they're going through, right?
yes,
Um, the differences between relationships, like we said before, you know, like the relationship that you have with your mother versus the relationship that you may have with a friend or a family, you know, another family member, you know, will affect you differently during the grieving
Yeah,
process.
that's
Correct?
correct.
Yeah.
And so grief is unique.
Mhm.
Grief is unique, and every person grieves differently. As we were speaking before, I mentioned that it is my thought that the common denominator in grief is that we are all grieving a loss of
Mhm.
either a loved one or something. But how we process that grief is unique. We're traveling on our own unique grief journey, trying to navigate through this new normal, which is understanding how to process emotionally what it is that we no longer have. Along my grief journey, um, I didn't understand why my older brother grieved the way he did, why my stepfather grieved the way he did. And I knew because my younger brother was so young, he didn't understand. All he knew was our mom was no longer there. But to deal with the emotions that we as adults understand comes with grief, he didn't understand that. But I was angry because I didn't feel like no one was grieving the way that I grieved.
Right.
But I realized along the way that we grieve, number one, because we love. And the harder we love, the harder the grief. But I
Yes.
had to understand that no matter how I was grieving, it didn't take away from how they were grieving because they also lost someone as well. But being able to understand what those emotions were and understanding that it was normal, that helped me to start my grief journey to
Mhm.
healing because you don't know that. You feel like you're alone. You feel like there's just an array of emotions that you feel. And it does affect relationships. You
Right.
know, you tend to isolate yourself because you don't think people understand you or what you're going through.
That's right.
And along the way, as I begin healing, I start to find a purpose and a passion in helping other people understand that you're not alone, that there is hope. You will find hope again. And it takes some time, and it's okay. However long it takes, it's okay. Just know that there is a light that you will eventually get to in time.
Now, we was talking about the differences between how men grieve, how you grieve, how your younger sibling grieved, and things like that. What were some of the things that you noticed that were different? You know, because coming from a man, I know that we suppress a lot of our emotions. Now,
Hmm.
when I went through my process, I didn't have an example. You know, I had to, I was watching other people, you know, like I wonder, you know, this the way it's supposed to go. And I
Right.
fell into that trap of this is the way you're supposed to do it, right? And then I realized, I realized very abruptly that wasn't the case. Like, why don't it look like mine, right? And so getting angry with people, going through that process. Let's talk a little bit about that from what you've seen, because you've seen it firsthand.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, you know, we look at others and then we are wondering why their grief journey don't look like ours.
Hmm.
What I noticed when it came to, say, my brothers, my younger brother, he just continued to live. He just continued to move on. But my older brother, um, he kind of shut down. He shut down.
Hmm.
um, I had to become the strength and the source for everyone else. But they weren't talking. It was hard to be able to, you know, share memories or talk about our mom because, you know, they didn't want to talk about it. They didn't know how to process those different memories and the thoughts of her without getting angry, without asking why, without lashing out. And I say that more so with my older brother, but I kind of sheltered my younger brother because I didn't want him to hurt. I didn't want him to worry. I didn't want him to carry any of the feelings or emotions that I was already feeling. I didn't want him to feel it. And so I willingly took those on, not realizing that I should have talked to him as a young man and a to get an understanding of what he was feeling and how he was feeling so that he knew that what he was feeling was normal. And so that was my we had different ways of grieving. In some unhealthy ways, you know, and that was something that I noticed along the way. But as I noticed that we were all grieving different, it allowed me to look at them differently and not in a negative way. Um, and so yeah.
Wow, I love that because I can relate to exactly what you just said, and speaking from a man's, from my perspective, you know, I have to say it was my journey was reckless. It was very reckless. But I understand, well, I see the similarities when it comes down to other men. It's that one thing that we always hold on to. I don't want to talk to you, right?
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? And so I talk to a lot of men. I go, well, I understand you don't want to talk. We don't have to talk. And when you're ready, I'm here if you need me.
Yeah.
And so the one thing that's always been consistent around it was the stages of grief, not the one that they wrote behind the cancer treatment patients, right? And I try to tell people like those 5 stages of grief were people who were still alive. They were just had a terminal illness. And so they documented it from there. Now, when you're going through a loss, any sort of loss, you could take it a different way. But the isolation is there, the anger is there, the irritability, the frustration, all of these different things, the bad choices, right? The addiction, right? And I tell these men, I go, honestly, you're okay. You're doing
Hmm.
you're okay. And they go, what do you mean? Well, I'm doing. I was like, because you're processing it the best way you know how,
Yeah.
and so, and that's okay. That is okay. If you need to sit down and take a breath, sit down and take a breath. If you want to be angry, be angry. There's no right or wrong way to doing this, right? It's just understanding that what you're doing, being more self-aware. So sitting with these men, I'm able to sit down and bring that recognition to them. They go, I never thought about it that way. I know, right? But there's other things on the other side of this process. And so it's a confusing battle. But
Hmm.
I find that with men and some women I talk to as well, right, is a confusing battle because they losing the identity, like yourself, like you said, you lose yourself, right,
Hmm.
and then you don't know who's going to emerge over the other side. And I think there's a sense of fear that comes along with it because of the anger, the hurt, and everything else that you're going through. I think we're afraid of seeing who we become, right? And some people
Yeah.
get stuck in that little loop, right, with the mental
Yes.
health, the addictions, and all of these multitude of things, the trauma that we experience through our life, right? And having that trigger kind of opens up the doors to a whole lot of judging yourself.
Hmm.
I mean, I think that's the
More
best way
than
to
what
say
we
it.
realize we are
Yeah,
doing,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
more than
judging
what we
yourself.
realize.
It is. Do you ever find that with yourself? Do you judge
I
yourself?
do.
I do.
I am very critical of myself.
Oh man.
And as we spoke about before we got on, I talked about how we have that primary loss,
Mm,
which could be the loved one. But then along with that comes secondary losses. And so for me, when I lost my mom, as I said, she was my everything. She was my best friend and she was my encourager. She was my motivator. When I was younger, I was very insecure. I didn't believe I was beautiful. I didn't believe that I didn't like my name choice. I wanted to change my name. Like I didn't believe anything about me, but my mom made sure that she spoke the positive. She told me I was beautiful every day. She encouraged me when I didn't think that I can do what I clearly could do, but she encouraged me. And so losing her, I lost that. I lost that as well. So when I needed to encourage myself, and I would want to call her, and I knew she was no longer there, or when I needed motivation and she was no longer there, I had to start finding ways of doing that for myself, but I still beat myself up more than I encouraged myself. I still felt like I couldn't do or I couldn't be or I wasn't going to succeed. And that was the hardest thing. And at some point, before I realized that it was grief, it was confusing. You have spoke about the fear. We have the fear of the unknown. We have the fear of we have those what ifs that
Yeah.
we always ask ourselves. What if this didn't happen? Or what if I do this and then this happened? One thing that I do realize when speaking with my older brother, he he told me, and this is just recently, because the way he processed grief and the way he dealt with our mom's passing was totally different. We couldn't look at pictures. I couldn't bring her up and things like that without him feeling some type of way. And
Right.
now he's come so far, but he told me that grief has totally changed him. It's changed the way he looks at life. It's
Mhm.
changed the way he does things. It's changed the way he communicates with people. Like people don't realize that who I was prior to the loss,
Yeah.
I am no longer.
Yeah.
And as a griever, we have to know that this is now our new normal.
Yeah.
And just understanding that you're going to be angry, you're going to be short tempered. There's going to be things that people say that's just going to, you know,
We
you
talked about that. We
know,
talked about that. Like,
so, but that is normal. That
yeah,
is normal. And being able, once you have an understanding of that, then you tend to become a little easier on yourself.
right.
I and not so hard on yourself. I would
And
have
on
people
others.
ask me,
Yeah.
yeah, or others,
And
exactly.
on others. I've noticed that
Yeah.
too, right? Because I used to get mad at people. And I used to just show up at places just because I was trying to show people this is not going to beat me, right?
Hmm.
So I thought I
Hmm.
was Mr. Billy, it was like, got to pound my chest and everything. This ain't gonna
Yeah.
beat me. And everybody just looked like, wow, you're still standing. And I was like, yeah, man, I'm still standing. And they would say, I would say now I understand it was their way of trying to communicate with me the best way they could. So I had to step outside of there and stop taking things so personally. I-
Hmm.
because I understood after a while, in the beginning, no one understands, right? And it feels like those little small things are a punch in the gut. It feels like somebody's pounding on your heart saying, hey, you know what? We're judging you, right?
Hmm.
But so when I realized that they wasn't judging me, that they were doing the best that they could, I had to take a different approach to it and have a better understanding. Or I just left from around people because I got tired of hearing the stupid things that came out of their mouth. Like
Yeah.
I've had someone compare losing their dog to losing my son.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 all of that. Somebody compared losing a car to my mother. I went,
Yeah. This, that show, people say the darndest things.
yes, yes, yes. I was
It's
like,
like, what were you thinking when you
it took a
were
lot
that?
of understanding. It took a lot of
Yes.
having patience for myself, but also having patience for others as well,
Yeah.
because there was a side of me that wanted them to understand, but then there was that big huge side of me that's more dominant now that goes, I'm glad that you didn't, that you
Yeah.
don't understand what I'm going through, right? And so therefore I get it. I get it. You're trying to comfort me the best way that you can, right? And so now I have a sense of gratitude for it. Even
Yeah.
now, it's going on 7 years for my son, 3 years for my mother, and it's like, okay, I get it now.
Yeah.
But also, there's the side of me that still just wants to throw punch him. Just
Yeah. And that's where my passion comes in, is educating.
yeah, right,
Educating
right.
those who don't know or don't understand. And they have that saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink it. And
Mhm.
so once I educate you, once I give you the knowledge for you to be able to understand why I am the way I am today, and that
Mhm.
I would no longer be who I once was, then it's up to those to really understand what to do with that information. And that's where the boundaries come in. And so if you don't take that information that I've provided to you and use it in a meaningful way and become mindful of a
Mhm.
griever or of a person who has lost something, then now I have to set boundaries. But it's not to say that I don't want to deal with you, it's to say I have to protect my peace. I
Right.
have to
Yes.
protect what I am now regaining because I lost who I was when I lost that person.
Mhm.
And a lot of people don't understand that, but I find purpose in educating not just other grievers, but their family members or their
Mhm.
friends, and so that no one feels like you have to go through this journey alone. Whether
Right.
you're a woman, whether you're a man, whether you're a child, there is someone out there for every one of us to be able to get the support and the understanding of what grief looks like, as we are all uniquely walking a different path
Right.
to
Right.
find
Yeah.
happiness again, you know.
Well, that's what they always say. They say grief is your own individual journey because it
And,
you never
and
like
it's an emotional roller
it's an
coaster.
oh my God. You talking
It's
about so it's
each
like
day does
those
not look the same.
oh my God,
Each,
those emotions are something
yes.
fierce, right? You know,
I
because
tell people take 1 minute, 1 hour, 1 day at a time.
yes, see, I
Just
love that.
each
I love that.
day, take 1 minute, 1 hour, 1 day at a time, because tomorrow it may not look how today looked.
Right.
Today could have been a whirlwind of emotions. You may have had an array of, just you've been ambushed, whether it
Mm,
was from a smell, whether it was from a
mm,
song, whether it was from anything. That was today.
yeah.
Tomorrow, you may have a smile on your face. You may walk with your head held up high, your shoulders and your chest pumped up. And you're
Mm,
like, how did I feel this way today? But yesterday, I was a wreck. Every day, you have to take 1 minute, 1 hour, 1 day at a time, because we are riding this wave daily.
that's exactly
And
what it
you,
is.
and so
It's a wave of
it's
just
a wave.
everything. Yeah, it's a wave of just everything. And there's no direction to it, right? And that's why I try to explain to the men when they're like, "Oh man, I'm really struggling." I'm like, "Yeah, I know, I get it.
Hmm.
I know that you're struggling." Well, and just like you said, well, yesterday I was fine. I was out mowing the lawn, went fishing with the boys, hung out, and now today I'm a complete wreck. Oh, yeah,
Hmm.
I was like, because you have the expectations from yesterday. You have to get out those expectations because
Yeah.
tomorrow you may be in a whole different place. And guess what? You're going to be okay, right? You're going to be just fine. And so they begin to break it down. I said, well, let's look at it this way. When you're having a bad moment, right? Leave it in that moment, but feel everything you need to in that moment.
Oh, yes.
When you go through and the next moment comes, well, the next moment is going to be totally different. You're not going to drag that with you, but feel everything that you need to go through. Be the thing that you need, right? And
Hmm.
explore your emotions. And most men are like, "Oh, I'm not going to do it." I'm like, no, explore your emotions. It's part of who you are. Our whole entire lives, people have told us this is not what a man's supposed to be. You're not supposed to be emotional. And I go, well, that's funny. Because if we're not supposed to be emotional, then why do we have them? It's like, was we just born and just said, hey, this part of you we're just going to ignore? I'm like, no,
Not at all.
people have told us you have to suppress those emotions because no one wants a weak man, right? No one, no one wants to see a man cry. I've been told that on my whole entire life.
Yeah.
But keep your head up, don't cry. And now I look at him and go, yeah, no, you got a problem now because I'm
Yeah.
probably crying. That,
Right.
and I educate. Well, I don't educate. I talk to my uncles because they were the ones who were telling me, when my mother passed away, hey, put your head up, man. Don't cry and things like that. But I used to watch them when my mother passed away, and they used to just run off. You know, when my mom passed away, they all ran off, and I was going, okay, where you going? And I realized what they were doing. They didn't
They
want to.
didn't want to show
They
you.
didn't want to show me, right?
Yeah, they
And
didn't want to
so,
show you.
yeah,
But
yeah, and
and
so,
that is one thing that you have to teach young men and
yeah,
men, that it is okay. I know that is something when my son was younger, I used to tell him all the time, cry. If that's what you need to get it out,
mhm.
cry,
Go ahead and get it on
scream,
out the way.
get it out. And now let's talk about what needs to be done in order for you to move forward
Mhm,
and not have to deal with how you're dealing with it now. But it's okay. Crying is not a sign of weakness. And we all show our grief differently, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
Some people cry, some people get quiet, some people, as you said, you had unhealthy habits. It looks differently, but you have to be able to identify that
mhm,
in order for you to be able to heal. If you can't put a name to it, then you're just going to be on this hamster wheel of emotions,
mhm.
facing the same emotions consistently until you figure out why and how to process it.
That's true. And one thing I want you mentioned healing. I don't think people really understand what true healing is, right? You know, and how painful it can be.
Hmm.
And so when I mentioned, hey, you got to heal from these things, not just the grief, but you got to heal from the trauma that's triggering that grief, and come to a better understanding of who you're becoming. And
Yes.
they go, well, I've taken these necessary steps, and I look at them, and I go, well, you're not really on the path just yet. And they go, what do you mean? I'm addressing these things. You're not really on the path just yet. See, and what I mean by true healing is that when you can go inside of yourself and start to put together those pieces
And do the work.
and do the work, right? You know,
Hmm.
and take that journey to, well, for most of us, right? Because we're in the field, we had to learn these things on the fly sometimes,
Hmm.
right? And no one ever taught me, like, hey, you got to go back and heal that child that's in there. I used to always hear about it and go,
Yeah.
that child is very dangerous. We don't want to mess with that child. But then when I
Right.
went back, I realized that that child that was in me, it was still hurt from all the things I had to go through. So I had to become the man that I needed. And then I had to learn how to walk through with that child all the way through my life until where I am right now. And I tell
Yes.
these men, I go, that's the hardest part about it. Because what you'll find that your grief is often a trigger from something else. And it's like most people were like, well, how we understand, it's that onion. You got to begin to peel that thing back.
Peel
And
back
as
the
sticky
layers.
and as much as it may make you cry and everything, peel that thing open,
Yeah.
it open and start just go inside of it, right? And go through the process. And a lot of people don't understand that it is a process. It's a journey, but it's a process too, right? Because now what I found out what grief is, that it takes a lot of the things that you held dear and take them away and show you how useless it is. But also it brought about those things inside of me that was hidden, right? That benefit me now, right? As
Hmm.
a man. And trust me, the holidays are hard. I still struggle with the holidays, but my friends, they kind of understand now, like holidays come around. I'm like, I can't do it. I can't.
Yeah, I tell people
Yeah.
when it comes to the holidays, especially with Thanksgiving being, I was going to say
Mhm.
next week, but hey, it's actually
It's
this
actually
week.
this week.
It's
Yeah.
this week. When you think about the holidays are the toughest. Those
Yeah.
first times, that you celebrate birthdays, the first times that you celebrate any special holiday, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Mother's Day, Father's Day, birthday, like I think I said birthdays, but
Mhm.
those are tough. And, I think the better prepared that you are, understanding that not everything will go as planned, but
Right.
trying to have a plan in order that helps you to get through, and understanding that you don't have to please anyone. It's about
I love that.
your peace. It's
Yes.
about your happiness. And so don't isolate yourself to where, I don't feel like it. I don't want to go around because you don't want to be looked at. You don't want, you have these thoughts in your head, as we talked about, where
Mm,
we're putting ourselves down. We're thinking that people are thinking things that they're not, but we're thinking them, and we're
mhm,
kind of reflecting those thoughts on others. But if you don't want to go enjoy yourself. If you feel like it's too much, then leave.
mhm.
Have an exit strategy if you're going to go around family
Yes,
or friends,
yes.
to be able to say, if I put that finger up, or if I excuse myself too many times, just understand that it's because I'm trying to get myself together, but being able to get back to doing those things that we used to do,
Mhm.
and understanding that the holidays are tough,
Yeah,
and they're going to be tough, um, no matter how much planning, but planning helps.
it does. And getting out of the thought of you got the first one out the way.
Hmm.
I found that the first ones are hard, but it gets a lot harder as you
Harder
go.
after.
They're
Yes,
like, I
it
got the
does.
first one out the way. It's like, ooh,
Yeah. Yeah.
don't do that. I tell them, I just do that to them. Don't do that. They're like, what do you mean? I was like, you got a lot more to go. And
Yeah.
like you said before, it depends on the relationship that you have with that individual. The more you love that person,
The harder it's
the
going to
harder it's
be.
going to be. And
Yeah.
I equated it. I was like, okay, I had 8 years with my son. I'm going on 7 years of his death. Now, I
Yeah.
don't recommend this to people, but I also look at the 8 years. I go, okay, I had 8 years here with him of just pure love, right? Dedication and everything else that came along with being a father.
Yeah.
And now,
Perfect.
yeah, now I'm going, okay, I got the first one, like I did made the same mistake. I got the first one out the way. The second year came around and wrecked me. COVID happened, right? That was hard because now everybody's in isolation.
Exactly. Now
So
all
it's
you
like,
have is
oh my,
yourself and your thoughts. There's
yes,
nowhere to run to
there's
because
nowhere,
we are
man.
all locked in our houses.
Oh my
Exactly.
God. I was like, okay, well, this is what
Yeah.
we're doing. But I found a way around it. I was like, I'm not staying in the house.
Yeah.
And luckily my nonprofit, I was able to become an essential worker. And they were like, yeah, we still want you to go around and do these things and everything. And I tell you, man, I've seen so much during COVID, so much, and how it affected everyone. And it just makes me want to do better. It makes me
Yes.
want to, yeah, it makes me want to look at everything and go, I see it. I see what you're going through. And I have something for you if you're willing to take it.
Exactly.
And so I think it changed the way that we approach things. I think it changed the way we started thinking about things, but also exposed the mental health, the violence, the domestic abuse, that grief is across the world. And now we look at everything now, right? The shootings, the mass shootings, now that everything's opened back up, the mass shooting,
Yeah.
oh my God, the violence, the
Just the
police
senseless violence that is taking
yeah,
place.
oh,
Yes. Yes.
yeah,
And you said something like, when we were in lockdown, you look at those numbers, you look at the data, and there was a drastic decline in crime. But
yes,
now that the world has opened back up, you do see that increase
right,
in
yeah,
that increase in crime, and which shows that what we do is needed.
yes,
They did,
yes,
the mental health was exposed, and now everything is about mental health. It was always there,
yeah,
but
yeah,
people had ways of hiding it. They had ways of not really, within the Black community, we're taught that what goes on in our house stays in our house. We're taught
mm-hmm,
to not speak up.
mm-hmm,
This is our business. You don't share that. You don't talk about your emotions. You don't do those things. That's what we're taught. And so now it's our job to reteach a new way in saying that there's power in speaking up. There's power in sharing your story, because there is someone else that is dealing with something just like you, that needs to hear it, and
mm,
they need to see that. For me, my loss did not, it defined me as I was learning how to adapt to the loss.
mm-hmm,
And now it has brought a new purpose that I'm able to share with others.
You go.
And
Yeah.
I would not be where I am today, I do not think,
Mm,
if it wasn't for me losing my mom.
yeah.
I would not have the passion. So I think I wouldn't have it as much. I've always had a passion for helping others and counseling and serving, but
Yes.
to this magnitude is because I've walked each step
Yeah.
along the journey, processing it all, understanding it. And I want to help others to see that I was once broken. And I'm going to be 1,000% honest. There's some days that I am still broken, no matter how long it is that you, no matter how long it is, or no matter how long that that loss took place,
Hmm.
there's going to be some days where you revert back to how you felt that very first time you got the call or you got the news or you, but the beauty is when you start peeling back the layers to the onion, when you start learning how to surf, because as I said, grief is like waves. When you start learning how to surf and ride those waves, then you will understand that even when you go back to that very first feeling that you felt, you now have the tools and the knowledge to be able to come back out, but not being afraid and knowing that you're going to one day go back in.
Yeah.
This is going to be this way for the rest of your life. No one wants to hear it. No one,
It's a hard
wants to hear
reality.
it, but
Yeah.
it's the reality.
Yeah.
When you're going to feel this way for the rest of your life, but finding that understanding, finding out how to deal with it, connecting with others who are going through some stuff just like you, providing that support, providing that motivation and encouragement that lets people see that you, like you said, it's okay.
It's
You
okay.
will get through this.
Yeah.
It's okay. If you want me to lay down on that floor with you,
I'm
I would
there.
get down there and lay on that floor with
I'm
you.
there.
If you
Yeah.
want me to sit here in silence so that you can talk and scream and yell and cry, then I will be a fly on the wall. I will will be
There
whatever
you
you
go.
need
I
me,
love it, man.
whatever
I
you need
love
me
it.
to be, But yeah, enough for me. I will I
Oh no,
told
yeah, like I
you.
said, we're good. So
I-
if you had any encouraging words to tell someone out there that's listening right, that's going to be listening, what would you tell them?
You're not alone. What you're feeling is normal. You don't have to have all the answers and take 1 minute, 1 hour, 1 day at a time.
Hmm.
And whatever that looks like for you, understand it's okay. Grieve, but find healthy ways of grieving.
Yes.
Find that support. Find whatever it needs to help you to get back to a place of happiness and hope.
Yeah. Now, how can people find you?
You can find me on Facebook. I'm not a big social media person, but I'm getting better. Um,
I get
so
it.
my name on Facebook, Choyce, and that's with a Y, Choyce Simmons. You can find me on Facebook.
Mhm,
You can also reach me by email at beautiful minds ccllc at gmail.
mhm.
Which Beautiful Minds is my company. It's the company that I started supporting those with learning differences as well as those going through grief. Um, and so, yeah, you can also reach me by phone. You can call me at 240-780-8535. That is my business phone. And so if you don't reach me, leave a message. I will most definitely call you back. And I would love to connect and help and serve however I can.
That is awesome. I want to say thank you. Thank you for
You're
coming out and sharing
welcome.
your story
Thank
today.
you for having me.
Oh man, this was awesome. Thank you for the conversation. And the audience is going to get so much out of this. Hopefully, when they look at this, they get out their pens and start writing these things down, because those little gems are in there. And for the griever that's out there, we know that the holidays are coming up. Please, by all means, if you're struggling right now, we always recommend that you find help. Find
Yes,
someone to talk to, find someone to be around. Do not go through it by yourself. That can be a very
exactly.
dangerous situation. And with that being said, I want to thank everybody for tuning in today and reach out to Choyce. You guys haven't seen the last of her. Trust me,
Mhm.
she's amazing. And
Thank
for
you.
everyone else out there, you guys keep your head up. Love you and thank you for the opportunity to be able to serve you. You guys have a good one. All right. There we go.